Al Emac coming to you with a little Saturday. I almost said Sunday. A little Saturday baseball here. No, it's not baseball. It's NBA. But I just made my baseball lineups. For those of you that didn't watch the earlier live before lock show, we threw out some home run calls. We've got all the tools over there on Stochastic, and everything is ready to go. But we have 28 minutes heading into game one of the second round. It is the Minnesota Timberwolves in Denver, the thin altitude, taking on the defending champion Nuggets, 4.5-point underdogs here. We've got a barn burner, Matt, and we've got some top heavy salaries. We've got some decision points. What's going on? How was the bounce house today?
The bounce house was fun. Not crazy fun for me, but that's part of dad duties, so we live with it. Yeah, man, happy to get on here and be talking some hoops with you. I know we've talked a bunch of baseball lately. So got a really, really exciting game tonight. Probably the most anticipated second round series. Winner of this one is going to be, especially Denver, obviously, is already the favorite to win it all. But Minnesota, if they can somehow get by the Nuggets here, I mean, I think that their ceiling is NBA title, clearly.
It definitely is. This does feel like it is the not the biggest impediment, because obviously there's still going to be most likely Boston, potentially New York, I guess, coming out of the Eastern Conference, which isn't going to exactly be a picnic either. And these games just end up being a grind for the teams that continue to extend their season. But yeah, this feels like whoever's coming out of this one should be the representative of the Western Conference in the finals. So it's going to be a crucial one here. Each team, they split 2-2 their regular season series. Most of the regulars played most of the games. There's a few games that people missed here and there. Each team won at home and lost at home. So not a ton to infer from there. We know from the first round, a lot of the key players are playing low 40s for minutes. I think we see that dialed back just a little bit. If the game's close, absolutely, because they're going to want to win today, right? Unlike Richard Jefferson's thought that it's advantageous to lose the first game. I know he had some words after that, but that was funny in the last round. Everybody's going to want to win tonight, but most of the stars probably play about 39 minutes. That doesn't seem like a lot, but what that does is that's going to open up a handful of minutes for a couple other players. And we are really, really starved for the proverbial value today, especially if you're trying to play on DraftKings and work Nikola Jokic and Anthony Edwards into a lineup. It is possible. Team Free Money has done that. Team Free Money has put 10 $1 head-to-heads in the DK lobby. Username Emac. Enter at your own risk. I'm due for a win, Matt. I think I'm 10% win rate over my last 100 or so that I've dropped in there. Giving back to the community. Everybody should love me.
Yeah. As to what you said about the value or lack thereof, that's kind of what we see on slates like this, especially the deeper in the playoffs you get. And with these two teams, especially, where so much of the production is funneled, we're definitely going to have to consider some rough options tonight.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll start at the top here. I'm going to drop in the NBA DFS building blocks article here, because that is for every day of the NBA season here. I've obviously, the big question is not, are you not going to play Jokic? It's how many lineups do you play before he's not in the multiplier slot. Now, it's a little more interesting on DraftKings because you do have the tax. You have that 50% tax on the salary. So that makes it a little more intriguing to start to go to, say, an Anthony Edwards, a Jamal Murray. You could even start to look at Michael Porter Jr., apparently the only sane Porter brother who is out there these days with all the messes his other three brothers have gotten into. But those are the intriguing guys. On the other side, we have seen Karl Anthony Towns minutes work up. He played about 38 in game 4. He had played mid-20s or so in the other ones where they didn't need him as much. So he should be good to go. Gobert's good to go. My guess is we see a little bit more Kyle Anderson in this series than we did in the last series, but we'll have to see how that shakes out. But obviously Jokic at the top, 20 raw point per median projection ahead of anybody on DraftKings, 15 on FanDuel. Is he, obviously he's your core play. Are you building any lineups without him tonight?
Couldn't imagine I would be. I mean, there's always like GPP merit whenever you get guys this high owned, but on slates like this, everyone's high owned because it's only one game. So no, I couldn't imagine not playing Jokic here. If I were playing 150, I mean, I wouldn't have 100%, but wouldn't be surprised if it was somewhere close. It's the playoffs. It's Jokic. You know he's going to get there. Just a matter of making it work around him. How about you?
So I will probably have about 10% of my lineups that don't have him. I will probably go with maybe half my lineups that don't have him at captain. That's my tournament lineups. He will be for spoiler alert. If anybody wants to grab those team free money lineups, he is going to be the captain in those. It's kind of hard to go without it. If you just take these stochastic projections and you put the optimal lineup out there, it's about 212. And every single one had, the top 8 had Jokic. If you put, then if you lock in Edwards, it drops down to about 207, 208. And then if you were to put Edwards at captain, but keep Jokic in the field, it drops down another couple points. So what is that? Well, it's somebody hitting 2 3-pointers, right? It's not out of the realm of possibility, or missing a bunch of shots, right? It's not out of the realm of possibility that people can maneuver there. I mean, we're talking about 3 different strategies there, and you're looking at less than a 5% differential in the points. So it's not impossible for these things to to be exclusive and, oh my God, you have to have Jokic. It's going to feel that way. But my recommended free wager of the day, under 49.5 PRA for Jokic.
Okay. Yeah.
So DFS is different than sports wagering. So I'm going that route, but I feel pretty strongly about Jokic. No great shakes there. Looking at Anthony Edwards, or I guess we should just quickly summarize Jokic here. So he's a golden god, and I think that's all we really say. If you look at Edwards in the first round, he averaged 39.5 minutes, 31 points, 8 rebounds, 6.3 assists, and 2.8 combined blocks and steals. So that's really good. So he was the number 2 guy amongst our player pool here. We have Jamal Murray, who's been dealing with a calf injury. Now, Minnesota last played on Sunday. Denver beat the Lakers on Monday. So each team's had some days of rest here. Murray was dreadful from the field. He was averaging 24 field goal attempts per game, which led the Nuggets, but he made just 40%. This year, he had his best year from the field, 48%, and his playoff shots from 3-point range are about 46%. So he is just clearly something was amiss. He could be a slate breaker if his shot is back, if his calf is feeling better. Michael Porter Jr., sort of that unsung hero. He had 22.8 points per game in the first round. He made 55% of his field goal attempts, almost half from beyond the arc at 8.2 attempts per game. So that's the big 3 there. And then you've got Aaron Gordon, who popped off for one big game, and you've got Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. But those guys are playing defense, doing the dirty work, and facilitating it for everybody else. So it gets a little tricky. Do you have any different read of Denver here, and do you want to go? You can take it with the secondary players.
Man, the big problem with Denver is kind of what I was saying at the beginning. Like all their production is funneled. I mean, it makes it easy to figure out where the production is going, but the problem is you just don't have any value at all. We're going to need some cheap pieces to make what we want to play work, and it is interesting. You said when you're talking about Jokic, like Jokic is a god, and he is, and all that. You like his PRA under. And while that isn't directly correlated with DFS, it is somewhat because, Jokic is going to be the highest scoring player on this slate for fantasy purposes, but you have to sacrifice so much to get him in there. And because the player pool is pretty shallow in terms of guys who we actually expect to produce, maybe like looking to get away from him and hoping for just an average Jokic game isn't the worst idea in the world. I don't think that's how I want to play it, but when you have slates like this where it's just really, really hard to fit the pieces you want, I don't think looking outside of the box like that is crazy, if nothing else. We know what Jokic is. We know who Jamal is. Aaron Gordon, and you mentioned KCP. are more there like for their defensive purposes. That said, we know they're going to be on the court. That provides merit on slates like this. They're not cheap, especially Aaron Gordon. I have to imagine his ownership isn't going to get there either, which makes him interesting. I want to get your take on Peyton Watson, just as like a value play to make stuff work here.
Yep. So he is my favorite going in cold to this series. He's my favorite amongst the Denver guys. I'm guessing he gets a little bit more for minutes than Christian Braun does, assuming there's no mop-up duty, just assuming everything close game, 10 points either way. Peyton Watson is going to get more minutes because Jokic is going to need a little bit of help with just the size of the Minnesota front court. So I'm thinking Reggie Jackson, who was dealing with his own ankle sprain in the 4 days or 4.5 days since he last played, that's probably helpful for him. And Christian Braun, they are each going to play between 12 and 15 minutes. 12 is probably conservative for each of them. At least one of them is going to pop off for 15 just in the normal course of business. I think at first it's going to be Peyton Watson. Reggie Jackson's path to get there would be something happens to Jamal Murray, foul trouble. He's just not feeling great. There is something to go with the calf issue, etc. Hopefully he's a little bit more healthy. Braun could get there. We saw him last year in his rookie season play key stretches, and stretches is a stretch because 3 to 4 minute stints a couple times a game and just be extra offense when they needed it. So I think he has the best path if it's a blowout in either way. I think Watson has the best path if it's close. And Reggie Jackson, I'm comfortable with, and I wouldn't worry about his game logs. I mean, most of them were single-digit points. I think we're projecting him for somewhere between 9 and 11 fantasy points, so it's not a lot. But I would think he at least has a chance to two ways to get there, which is something happening to Murray or the blowout run. But you got to remember, unless he's out there with the second unit, he's deferring to everybody else. He won't look for his own shot for the most part, right? And a lot of his assists or he's more of it's going to be that swinging the pass around. If Jokic is on the court still, Jokic is going to get all these assists, right? You need him without Jokic and Murray on the court to cook for about 4 minutes. That's all we need. Just a little 4 minutes stint in the oven there, and he can make us happy. But that's sort of my take on those guys. And I don't see anybody else really playing per se. I see Stephen Leibowitz, longtime fan of the show here. He is mentioning DeAndre Jordan. Jordan probably gets a rotation this series, ? Probably. But that's only could be 4 or 5 minutes. And it wouldn't be a shock if he gets the donut.
Yeah, I think that does open up like an interesting can of worms here, though. Not necessarily with DeAndre Jordan himself, maybe, but like new series present new challenges, new personnel, et cetera, et cetera. We don't know exactly what that means for these teams. We basically know what Denver's going to do, but the back end of their bench might look a little bit different considering how big Minnesota is. And then same with Minnesota. Now, it might not come to fruition tonight in game 1, but you never know when you change these series, how these teams are going to change. So it's something to at least look out for.
All right. So here's a good one. We can kind of transfer over here to the Denver, or probably the Minnesota side. I see Jake Swells, Jake, my favorite Pirate King out there. Because Swales reminds me of swells, ocean swells. So that's where I kind of throw the pirate flag towards him with the parrot, just to make sure that he knows he is a pirate. He is saying that Jokic will play Gobert off the court. I don't think that's going to be the case. This is not the matchup for that. Usually when Gobert is exposed, it is quicker teams. Jokic is like Doncic, kind of runs in slow motion here. Not Kyle Anderson slow motion where it looks like he's running in slow motion, but he's really running at a normal pace. But he can slow things down just a little bit there. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. And then when you saw the other games this season, Gobert, I mean, he's going to be out there. So is Karl Anthony Towns. There's no question about that. It's intriguing thoughts, right? What happens in a 1-game sample size? Well, maybe it does happen. Maybe he just looked like ass and the coach benches him. I think it'd take a couple games before that happens. But it's in play at some point this series. I think, Jake, you are absolutely correct. Gobert there are outcomes where he could just find himself watching the game. So that's kind of there. tonight. What happens tonight? I don't know. But where I think it's going to be Kyle Anderson a little bit more than Naz Reid probably is just more wings type players to defend. And I think that's where they'll need Kyle Anderson. Reid, of course, is going to back up Karl-Anthony Towns and Gobert. He'll get his minutes, probably 18 to 20 would be my guess. He really needs something to happen to one of those other two before he's going to get a little bit more. How are you kind of playing off of Ant with the remainder of the Timberwolves?
Yeah, so I think Minnesota is going to come into this series not trying to change much, considering how much success they had last series. Now, they might have to, because it's Denver, much different, tougher opponent. And Gobert getting played off the court isn't out of play, as you mentioned, but I'm not expecting it. So Minnesota is like similar to Denver in that they have their one star, Ant, who, you clearly want to get to. He's not as much of a priority as Jokic is, though. We know that. He's also cheaper. So I think Ant is clearly the best play from Minnesota because he's amazing, but he's also priced like as high as he probably can be. So I do think there's more merit in fading Ant than Jokic. Granted, Jokic is going to be much higher owned because he's Jokic, so that going in. But unlike Denver, where I have paused for like all the secondary pieces outside of Murray, I think Minnesota, that's where you want to go. Whether it's Gobert at 9K, he looks good. Nickeil Alexander-Walker at 4,600, probably the best quote-unquote value play on the entire slate. Mike Conley at 7K looks good. Don't love Towns at 9,400. I'd probably leave that for GPPs. But I think your Kyle Anderson point makes a lot of sense. So him and Naz Reid. Reid at 5K, Kyle Anderson at 3,800. I wouldn't be surprised if the winning build tonight is like Jokic captain, all Wolves. I don't expect that to happen. That's not like if I were playing one lineup, I don't think I would play like that. But it's conceivable to me,
Absolutely, and that's a good call out on that one there. So we got 11 minutes before lock. This just happens to be an abbreviated show for us here. Since there was only one game, we do want to call out the sponsor of the show, which I believe is Sleeper today. So that is one of the sites that is one of the two sites that is offering a $500 deposit match with your first deposit. If you come in through the link in the YouTube description below, your first deposit, whatever it is, they're going to match it up to $500. That is a very, very good way to get a jump on your bankroll. You need to put in at least $20 there. Key things that are fun on Sleeper. They do offer the dynamic payouts. They do allow you to push some of their lines, not all of them, but some of them you can push higher or lower for a higher or lower payout there. They also have more stats than most of the other sites. You can, like for baseball, they have home runs and triples and stolen bases. Basketball, a lot of people have kind of gotten into the double doubles, but they were one of the first to have that there. Same with the triple doubles. So it's a lot of fun over there on Sleeper. So again, $500 with that first deposit match makes it a whole lot of fun. What do you think Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he's got to make the shots to kind of stay on the court. That's the one thing that will keep him ahead of Kyle Anderson. But you can say the same thing about Kyle Anderson. You've got Jaden McDaniels, who will play about 30 minutes. There are plenty of people for him to guard. May or may not look for his shot. Well, he won't look for a shot. May or may not get some fast breaks or some backdoor cuts. But as far as looking for his shot, that is not really his game. It's tough to get excited about him. We kind of hinted around Naz Reid there a little bit. What do you have? What else do you want to impart from the Wolves here? And then we can take some questions.
Yeah, I'm with you on like it's not a feel-good play, 4,600. You do need him to make some shots, but it's just really hard to make rosters work here with these teams, to make lineups work, and he fits. And he's pretty much game script proof. He's going to get run no matter what. He's not going to break the slate, but he just allows you to fit the pieces that you actually want to fit. Same with someone to a much lesser extent, but he's also cheaper, like Reggie Jackson. We already talked about Peyton Watson. My question that I'm going to flip back to you, what's the cheapest you think you'd go for captain here?
Probably Karl Anthony Towns. I want somebody that has a shot at 40 fantasy points. I would happily consider Towns, Gobert, and Gordon. That's my cutoff.
Okay.
It's kind of
so you wouldn't go to like Conley.
No.
Okay.
If it happens, it happens. But if I was handling, I would not go to Conley. I like him better because I think he's got like about a 25 fantasy point floor and a realistic ceiling like that he can get to with realistically about 35. That's not 40. I think the other guys have different paths of getting there to 40. He needs, Gobert, or he needs Karl Anthony Towns and Ant to be making the shots he gives them, but he needs to be taking his own shots. And that on top of that, that's a tall order. And I don't see him getting there via that. And it's harder. Murray and Jackson are good in the backcourt, plus Jokic. It's harder to get steals against Denver. So him popping off is a little tricky. And he's no spring chicken anymore. But.
No, he's not. One guy we haven't discussed that I'm kind of intrigued with. He's not a great player for fantasy purposes, but he's been really, really good in this playoffs. He's playing a lot of minutes. Jaden McDaniels. Like, I think he's a real interesting piece. You hope you get some of the peripherals here. Like, he comes in with a couple steals, which he's more than capable of doing. Grab some extra boards. Like, he is going to play. They love his defense. He's one of the best defenders in the league. And he's showing signs offensively. He's not picking up ownership either. He's coming in less owned than Kyle Anderson at 3,800. Now, I get it. He's in a little bit of an awkward pricing point, and I wouldn't want to captain him. But I do really like him in the utility in tournaments, considering the lack of ownership.
Okay. That I think is absolutely fair on that one. I've got my ownership here. How many lineups am I going to do? I'm going to do 70 lineups. No, I bet I can build out 100. Quick favorite, 100. I was just seeing how many contests I managed to get into. So I'm ending up with a lot more Jamal Murray than I anticipated. I am going to have 41% of Jaden McDaniels. He is my third most popular play. Conley's coming in as my fourth most popular. Anthony Edwards just 35%. I'm going to give him a little uptick here. Who is any surprise? I'm going to give Karl Anthony Towns an uptick, and I'm playing less Jokic. It looks like with what the Sims are giving me. I'm okay with that because about half my funds in play are going to be with Jokic at captain in that cash game, which I've got in the single entry tournaments and some 3-mans and 5-mans and double doubles, etc. So we shall see here. It's Karl Anthony Towns. I think is kind of the main.
He's going to be really low owned.
Yeah. So
I was just thinking about him. Like, he is going to be low owned because everyone will want to jam in Jokic and Edwards, considering how Edwards is playing. Towns is too pricey for what he's been doing, but that doesn't mean like tonight he's not a great play. So, I mean, you just look at it. He's coming in with the same ownership as Naz Reid, Peyton Watson, Kyle Anderson. Like, he's really toward Jaden McDaniels. I love Towns in tournaments.
Yeah, and that I think is that's going to be where I'm making my stand tonight. Shout out to Chris Williams there, dropped in some YouTube memberships there. So always fun with our favorite Apple guy showing up here from time to time. We've got 5 minutes until lock here. You are going to want to take advantage of team free money. I still have about 5 lineups there. They'll get auto matched with somebody. So I'd rather have them going to you guys, and then we can be in playback after the show and discuss how bad my lineup choices were, because that seems to be something that picks up traction as the night goes on in playback. I mean, if you can't just make fun of me, what's the point of even walking this earth, Matt? It's just kind of boring. We'll drop the link there for playback into chat as well. Let's favorite 100. Export. I've already got my template ready to receive these guys. And hello, Rudy Gobert. This is going to be intriguing, Matt. It is going to be a nail biter, but I am totally comfortable. My highest projected lineup does not have Jokic, and it's going with Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, Michael Porter. It's got Reggie Jackson in there, and then Nickeil Alexander Walker. I did make boosts both positive and negative. to about 7 players there, including a couple who were at the captain/MVP slot, because I wanted to be able to have a little bit of a difference from what other people may or may not be doing. So that's how I countered that balance. 3 minutes out. Who do you think wins tonight?
I was just about to ask you that. I do feel like with these slates, you gotta tell yourself a story, right? Like that's just what it is. I'd be surprised if Denver loses this game. I think that this is a like show your mettle type of game. They struggled a little bit with the Lakers in the first round, and Minnesota looks so good. I get it. Not going to be shocked if Minnesota wins, but I expect Denver to put the foot down. Like, I don't think Minnesota has much of a chance to win this series. That's just me personally, though. How about you?
So we do this game with the Australian. I'm in a league with a bunch of guys from Australia and one of my college buddies, fantasy league. And to determine who gets the first overall pick, they call them tips. It's like their tip sheet. So we pick the winner of every series all the way through from the wild or the play-in tournament up through the championships. And oddly enough, I went with the second series, everybody going 6 games. So we'll see. There's a little strategy because you know how far behind you are game wise against the other guys. But I'm going that path. I think we see nobody is going to sweep this series. Most of them are going to go 5, and I think one of them is going to sneak into 7. I just don't. I mean, maybe it's the Knicks and Pacers, but I think 6 feels about right for most of these here. One name we didn't bring up and simply must. Shamar Gillespie asks Christian Braun or Monty Morris. This would be the Monty Morris Remember Me spot here. I made that joke in my article, again free over there on the homepage at Stochastic. I would play Braun more. He's going to get 8 to 10 minutes for sure. Morris, anything more than 6 minutes is going to have to be mop up, and there's even no guarantee he's in there for that.
I agree with you. He's also cheaper though, and that matters. So I would definitely prefer to get to Braun, but I don't think it's such a big difference where if you have enough money for Morris and not Braun, you have to change everything. Just considering how these slates work, that 1,200 might matter a lot.
All right. I am dropping in the link to playback. We will have the games running, or the game running over there. Tomorrow, it is a 1 o'clock NBA lock. Don't lose sight that there's still an NHL game. That's as a reminder for myself. That is at 8 o'clock, so you need to go set your showdown lineups for that if you're like me. And then we are going to do an 11 o'clock show tomorrow for baseball. So it would be a little earlier once again, just because of that 1 o'clock lock for
11:30.
Oh, 11:30. Thank you.
Actually, I just saw the NBA game start at 1 also, doesn't it? I'm a little confused.
I thought it does. There may be an overnight update. We'll see. Mr. Ehrenberg in charge of all the schedules. He's out, so everything falls apart the moment he leaves. So we're like the kids, and the parents are be good, kids. Mom and dad are going out to dinner tonight. We're like chaos. So, but in any event, we are.
Oh, I know why. Because they made that now that like we're on right now, it's a half hour NBA live before lock. So because it's only one game, so we're going 11:30 to 12:30. They're going 12:30 to 1. Figured it out.
There you go. Look at that. Look at the big brain on Matt.
Hey, I try.
That's right. You can see Matt in action if you would like on Twitter. He's over there at Fantasy Tips Matt. I am at Emac DFS. Thank you to Sleeper for being the presenting sponsor for this show. Link in the YouTube description below us here. $500 deposit match with your first deposit. And of course, you can find Stochastic on Twitter, or formerly known as Twitter, now known as X, at Stochastic_COM. Shout out to producer Jacob. With that, gamers, to playback we go. Good luck.